we are opposed around the world by a monolithic and ruthless conspiracy that relies primarily on covert means, on infiltration instead of invasion, on intimidation instead of free choice, on guerrillas by night instead of armies by day. There is little value in ensuring the survival of our nation if our traditions do not survive with it.
All right. Welcome to episode 95 of the Abuse Hour. It is I, your host, Coffee Long, coming to you unsupervised, unmedicated, and an unchecked threat to society. So I know it's only been a couple of days since the last episode, but I had a few things in mind that I wanted to get out, and especially in view of some of the stuff that's gone on the last few days, I thought it would be a good time to just sit down in my secret lair and get these things down. So today I wanted to do a movie review that applies more than it doesn't. It'll make sense after. I wanted to get some thoughts out on this situation with this Yahya, what the fuck is this guy's name? Yahya Sinwar, Hamas leader that just got blown up. And then I wanted to do a quick review on this DoD Directive 5240 TAC 1, this thing that's basically saying that DoD intel collection components can work hand in hand with law enforcement against pretty much anybody. Which probably means you. Let's not bullshit each other, right? So before we get to that, man, I wanted to get a couple thoughts out about something I had seen the other day. I saw one of these little posts, and I think it's, I don't know, it looks like one of the Chan type posts, and a guy was talking about like, I think he was an older dude, and he was talking about, I was talking to some people, and like nobody really goes out, nobody meets up to hang out anymore. This guy's writing this thing saying that he went to like a book signing or like a book presentation or some kind of a thing, and saw somebody there that he knew, and he was like, "Hey man, you want to go get a drink after this?" And the guy's like, "What do you mean? What are you talking about?" He's like go here, like we're talking, but you know, we can go somewhere else and we can keep talking, but also get like a drink and hang out a while. And he's like, "Well, sure, I guess so." Like looks at him kind of weird. And then I guess whoever it is wrote the book at this signing that he was at. He sees the author, you know, and he's like, "Hey, do you want to go too, man?" And he's like, I figured that the guy probably had other plans, like this is his event or whatever, but he's like, "Do you want to go too? We're going to go get a drink and hang out a little while." And the guy's like, "Yeah, I don't have anything going. I'll go with." And he's like, "Really? You don't have anything going? Like what? Okay." But they go out there, and these two guys are like, "Oh, this is really a good time, man. You hang out and talk some shit and just if there's other people there, you know, meet the people." And that was it. And he was like, it was a great time. But apparently nobody does this anymore. Everything is so atomized now that like people just stay home. Like, "Where are you going?" "I'm going home. I'm going to get Uber Eats and sit at the house." Like that's a big night out, right? Like Netflix and Uber Eats. I'm going to get some third worlder to bring me a pizza. But I hadn't really thought of that because, I mean, I don't really go out that much no more. I guess that's not completely fair, man, because I mean, I am on the road a good bit, and I do spend some time with like the clients want to go out, they want to get dinner or whatever. So in that sense, I do get out a little bit, but not in a way that like I'm having fun. Like I'm there for the client, like having dinner, listening to their thing, listening to their situation. Like I'm still kind of on the clock, man. So I don't know if I'd ever call that like I'm having such a great time, right? Like, no, dude, I got to pay rent too. So it just kind of made me think of that though. Like, dude, I don't really go out neither. And I think especially in our thing, we do push pretty hard to say like, yeah, dude, don't go out like doing the boozing, hookup culture thing. Like that shit's degenerate. Okay, yeah, okay, that's a solid point. But also like try to remember our favorite uncle got his thing started in a beer hall. And try to remember that even this country, right, the U.S., the idea for this got started in a bar, in the Green Dragon Tavern, right? Guys drinking beer, talking shit, and like, you know what, man? Fuck the king, dude. I bet we could do this. We could do this shit, man. What do you think? Let's get some of those other guys, right? So I think there's a lot to be said for guys getting together, talking shit. Even if it's just some venting, man, like, dude, so much shit pisses me off, man, right? Like something, right? It's something, it's still good for you. But I also know that it's like after this this COVID thing, especially, it became like just this: no, don't ever do anything, never do anything fun, always sit at home, never go anywhere if you can possibly avoid it. And plus, now everything costs so much, it's like this kind of sucks, you know. But and I don't know if this becomes like, hey, you gotta find your own happy hour or whatever. And I'm not saying get shithoused, but get out, even if it's a coffee, right? Get out for a coffee, have a laugh, do something. I think that's good for people. And I'm saying that like partly to you, and I'm saying it to me as well, because I've been like on the shut-in tip, not really shut in so much as the house, but just like work focused. Like I'm not doing anything else. I got no time to do anything with anybody. And it sucks, dude. And you stop and you look and you're like, man, this is not a way to live. But I think it's kind of indicative of just the way that things are going, you know, like times are hard. It's like this very, very, I don't know, this very Iron Curtain feel. Like I had a chance to go once to, I spent a little bit of time in Poland. Like and if you listen to the Oktoberfest stories from a few episodes back, you're familiar with this story. But I went over to Germany to see this dude that I knew that was working over there. And he's like, yeah, we're going to go to Oktoberfest. And we end up driving to fucking Poland like suckers. And I'm in Poland, dude. And there was very much a feel. Like there's a feel to it that like you're not in friendly territory. It's not like you go there and people don't like you or something. Like the people I talked to were cool. But there's like just this vibe that like you don't know who might be listening, or I don't know who the fuck you are. I don't know what you want. So don't start thinking we're pals or some shit. It was a weird vibe. But there's very much that vibe here in the States now, I think, where it's become increasingly, like as I look back, to like when I was young, when trees were made of wood and ships were made of wood and all this kind of shit. When I look back at way back when, it really was like, you get out Thursday, you get something to eat, see the boys, whatever. Friday, we're going to get out. I'm not going to get super, like fucked up because I just got off work and I'm tired. Saturday, we're going to hang out, maybe do an all day kind of a thing, man. We're going to go and, get some beers. We're going to go whatever, get a workout, going to do a thing, do something. But you're going to do something. Now is like, you ain't having no fucking fun. Like nobody's got time for fun. Who the fuck has time for fun? It's like 1984 out there. Like zip up your full length fucking jumpsuit. Get to the factory, with like the image of Big Brother looking over your fucking shoulder, like, hey, dickhead, quit horsing around. Quit looking over your shoulder. Turn to you. So, yeah, it was just something that kind of had my head going a little bit. So today, man, I wanted to talk a little bit about this Yahya Sinwar situation, and I kind of wanted to preface this situation because when I heard, some talk on this and I listened to the first half of War Strike episode, like this most recent episode, I guess it came out. And dude, if you don't listen to this, it is some good commentary, but I don't know who's funding these dudes. Like, is it the Russians? Because I know I don't have like 6-7 hours to sit down and get my thoughts out there, let alone like the 3, 4, 5 hours that must take to round up, like, here's what I think, here's what I see. Because the shit that I'm telling you is like, I round this shit up. I'm listening to news kind of all day, but I'm just getting thoughts down, like a half hour, an hour tops, before I sit down, like, all right, I'm going to put something out there while I've still got it, fresh in my head. But these dudes, they put out some content. Anyways, these guys were talking about this Yahya Sinwar situation and how this guy got blown up in I guess in Lebanon. And it immediately made me think of something that I had been meaning to talk about before, because it kind of drew this interesting comparison as I was looking at it. But it's this movie, The Illusionist, from 2006, starring Edward Norton. And the basic concept of this movie is that it's set in like late 1800s Vienna, right? And the idea here is that there's this character, Eisenheim, and that's his stage name, if you can imagine that, right? Like a guy picks out a stage name, Eisenheim, to be less conspicuous, where his real name is, Edward Abramowitz. And so apparently in this film, he's buddy-buddy with this young lady who would grow up to be the Duchess von Teschen. And she would be betrothed to, in the film, Crown Prince Leopold, guy who is presumably going to take the throne at some point in Austria. So in the film now, this Eisenheim knows her when they're young, and then he travels the world and learns all the ancient mysteries by the light of a full moon and this kind of shit, and then comes back to Vienna to mystify and dazzle the crowds with his illusions and tricks and magics and all this kind of fucking thing. But over the course of the film, it becomes apparent that him and this girl still have this thing going. So what they do is they put together this little plan where they're going to make it appear that the crown prince murdered her, and that then he'll be tried for murder. He'll get locked up someplace, and then those two will skip town and live out their lives happily ever after, going town to town. I don't know what, putting on magic shows or some kind of shit. So, whatever. So already kind of right out of the gate, it tastes a little bit Hebrew-y, but don't wait, it gets worse, right? So this story, this situation is kind of loosely drawn from a situation that happened around that same time period called the Meyerling incident. And this was a situation where this is the real, a real story, upon which this is very, very loosely based, or, I guess inspired this film, if you like. But the deal here was this guy, Crown Prince Rudolph. This guy was 30 years old, and he was in line for the Austrian throne. And this Crown Prince guy, he was, I guess, very interested in this girl, Fran von Wetzera, while at the time was, I believe, married to somebody from Belgium, and I didn't write this woman's name down. So like the one time I actually take notes, I got nothing. But anyway, this guy is actually married to some Belgian girl, but he's got it bad for this von Wetzera girl who's 17. This guy's 30, she's 17, so already a little bit on the dodgy side. So these two are out hiding out at this lodge, I guess it was called the Meyerling Lodge, and it becomes this murder-suicide thing. And they both left notes that like, oh, I can't be with my beloved, and so I must take my own life. I'm happier in death with her or with him than I am, in the world that's so rough and hard and cold and whatever the fuck, right? So apparently this guy, Crown Prince Rudolph, like you'd be inclined to think like, I don't know, was there foul play here? But apparently, for what a lot of reports said, was that this guy kind of had a death wish. Like this guy wasn't right in the head. He was a little bit unstitched. And he had tried for like some kind of suicide pact with some other woman, like a hooker or some shit, like years earlier. And somebody had said like, yeah, he tried the same shit with her over here. But this girl apparently went with it. Anyway, as it happens, this fucked up the succession of the Habsburg line, and where the succession would have gone to him, it ended up going to Franz Josephs, who I guess was in charge at the time, went to his brother, the Archduke Karl Ludwig, and because I guess that guy was pretty old, then naturally would fall to Archduke Franz Ferdinand, who you have heard of, the guy that gets shot by some Serbian anarchist or some shit and presumably kicks off World War I. Anyway, this is like the weird incident that this story is kind of drawn from. So in any case, in this story, the way that this Crown Prince is presented is that he's a guy, like right out of the gate, he's a bad guy because he beats up on women. He's very rough with women. And there was a rumor that he had even killed some woman. And it's like, okay, well, hold on. Like out of the gate, this guy's supposed to be like looking forward to running an entire country. I mean, if you're talking about Austria, you're talking about taking the reins of what I guess was formerly an empire, right? Like this guy's got fish to fry, right? And then, in the movie, I think it demonstrated this. I don't remember what it was because I watched the movie a long time ago. It was basically this woman that's like, I want a pony, this kind of shit. Like, why can't I have my friends over? What the fuck? You get to do everything. I don't do anything. And so he gives her like the back of his hand, like, zap, here you go. Shut your fucking mouth for a while. Is that nice? Is it cool? Okay, maybe not, dude. But like Sean Connery says, if you've tried everything else and you've no options left and she won't listen to reason, well, what choice have you got, right? So in this case, I'm inclined to agree with Sean Connery that sometimes you just haven't got a choice. Anyway, that's not really the point here. So in this film, then the idea is that this Eisenheim comes back to town. Oh, he's this amazing magician. He used to be just a bum, but now he's this amazing magician. And what's his story? I've traveled the world, and I'm so weary from my travels. And now here I am back in town, and I'm going to do some magic, and I'm going to baffle all of you. But the way this guy does it then is like he doesn't just come to town and like does some tricks and it's cool and this kind of thing. No, he has to go do like this performance for the Crown Prince and then makes the Crown Prince look like an ass, like kind of embarrasses the guy. It's like, what the fuck do you have to do that for? Like, well, because I want your woman, long and short. Like, so you can't see it at the beginning, but it's already in this guy's head. Like if you watch the movie backwards, and you're like, wait a fucking minute. So as it goes on, then him and this girl are like they're buddy, and you see it's building up and there's tension and there's a lot going on. And then eventually some kind of incident comes to pass whereby he appears to have killed her. She's dead somewhere. And who could have done it? It was her, because she has, I guess, like in her hand or something, this jewel from his sword. And she doesn't have a pulse and she must be dead. And oh my goodness, what to do? It's obviously this guy, right? So the chief inspector, this Paul Giamatti, you know the guy, you've seen him, kind of squirrely looking little dude. This fucking guy, I'm doing the best I can, Your Majesty. This fucking guy. He's the chief inspector, and he comes in here to see what's going on. And the Crown Prince is obviously dismayed. But like as it comes out that like, oh, but this Eisenheim, he's just a poor innocent passerby. And it doesn't say in the film explicitly that he's Jewish, but like I read a few different articles about this thing, and the way it's written, it does come across as like, yeah, he is obviously Jewish. He's talking about he's doing a lot of traveling. His name is Edward Abramowitz. He's a pauper. He's not popular. He's a stage entertainer. These are all very Jewish things, apart from the obvious treachery and destabilizing government. It becomes very, very obvious. But the way this plays out then is that this head inspector goes in there and kind of confronts the Crown Prince and is like, look, it's pretty obvious that, you did this. You're going to have to explain this. And the guy, this Crown Prince, he's just beside himself. So the Crown Prince in this scene, in the final scene, if you like, ends up shooting himself in the head. But before he does that, he's talking to this chief inspector, and he's talking, and I had to consider this. He says, look, he's manipulating you. It's trickery. Can't you see it? He says, it's a trick. It's an illusion. It's so obvious. And he says, I'm trying to save this empire from my father. He's running the empire into the ground. It's so obvious everyone here is incompetent. But where I propose to clean up this mess, all you repay me with is betrayal. And he says this country is going to be run by mongrels, 1,000 voices screaming to be heard, and nothing gets done. And I really had to think about that, man, because, it's easy to look at this and you just see it and it's like, oh, he's freaking the fuck out and now he's going to kill himself. But when you really think about this, all right, his woman, this woman that he is supposed to marry, whether, you think that he's too rough with her or not, this woman that he was supposed to marry is dead. All right, so that's not, and he knows that he didn't do it, because he didn't do it, right? He knows he didn't do it. Somebody killed the woman that he was supposed to marry. So this is, not just an attack on his woman. This is also like a fuck you to him, right? It's like somebody slashes your tires. Well, I'm not physically injured, right? But this is very much an attack on you. Like your stuff has been assaulted. This is a fuck you to you. So his woman has been killed, so far as he knows. He knows he didn't do it. He also knows that he is the prime suspect, according to all of these little circumstances and little conveniently placed clues. He is the prime suspect, so he knows he's going to go down. And now, in the last moments of his life, he's coming off the rails and he is speaking from the heart, telling the truth. And he's telling you that his only thought is for his people. His concern is for his empire. He's talking about that I'm going to try to get this empire away from my father before he destroys it. I'm going to try to make it so this place isn't run by mongrels. so that things do work properly, and you are not helping. And he says, I've done everything I can. And then he just shakes his head and said, I can't stand it. I won't stand it. And shoots himself in the head. So, I mean, if you think about this, like, here's a guy who no shit puts his people, puts his country before everything else. And who is he bested by? He's bested by a weaselly little snake stage performing Hebrew who comes to town with the sole intention of stealing his woman. And when it becomes apparent that he is basically legally prohibited from stealing his woman, he frames him for murder so that he can steal his woman. Like, basically has her stage her own death so that they can run away together. Like, fuck this guy, fuck the country, fuck the lineage of the royalty, fuck any sense of social responsibility to, you know, the other people you share this country with. Fuck them. Hooray for me. I'm going to get some pussy. That's it. That's the end of the story. All right, so now, you know, you could say, like, Coffee, you're getting real spun up about a fucking movie. It's not the movie. It's not the film that's got me spun up, all right? This is a story by Hebrews demonstrating their values, demonstrating their disregard for you, for your values. Oh, you care about your country? Oh, you care about your people? Oh, you care about things working the way they should? Well, fuck you, man. I care about getting mine. Even if it's just me getting laid, hooray for me, fuck you. Even if that costs you a country, even if it means that your society is going to be run, like the guy says, going to be run by mongrels, nothing is going to get done, everything is going to be fucked up. I don't care. That's not what matters. What matters is my little bunny ears true love. Even if that means we're going to run away, she can't even tell people who she is. She doesn't have a family now. The only family she has is me, traveling stage performer. And how are you going to get by? I don't know, ticket sales, I guess. All right. So when you think about it that way, like, this is what these storytellers are telling you. And as the movie ends, the guy, the chief inspector that finally, like, it clicks in his head, he doesn't look at it and go, that motherfucker. He's not like shocked and appalled and like, that son of a bitch. I can't believe it. I got tricked too. That fucker, like, he left town and fucked over all these people. And like, this line of royalty is fucked up. Everything's in disarray now. Just so that guy could have his little girlfriend now. Everything is fucked. He should be angry, but is he angry in the film? No, he's like, that silly scamp. Oh, I can't believe it. How clever of him. That's the story that they're telling you. That's the story that these Hebrew storytellers are putting out there for you. So, like, their idea of a happy ending is like, look at this. European society is subverted. Hebrew runs away with the good-looking girl, and everybody, not you, lives happily ever after. That's the story that they're telling you. That's a story they want you to be cool with. So now if you kind of take that template and now you look at this Hamas situation, this Yahya Sinwar situation. I guess it was a couple days ago then that this guy got killed, what appears to be by the structure that he was in, the building that he was in, getting leveled by a tank, like shot twice by a tank. And this guy got killed. Apparently, and as I understand it, they did not know that the guy they had cornered in there was this guy, Yahya Sinwar. What happened then is they had been chasing this guy and they were talking about like, oh, he's on the run. He's hiding. He's in a bunker somewhere. He's surrounding himself with kids and children and women and he ain't going to come out. And this guy's a coward and this kind of shit. What apparently had happened, though, is this guy is not hiding. He's out and about. He's out there on ops with his guys, with his people, out there running and gunning. And the guy's in his fucking 60s, but he ain't hiding. Apparently, it's that these people had such loyalty to him because he is walking it like he's talking it. He's saying, hey, do this shit. Here's our values. Here's what we believe. He's not saying that shit from a lockdown bunker someplace. He's out there in the shit. So he had his bodyguards, which reasonable. You need this guy to make decisions, right? But then they get narrowed down where this guy is. They got him holed up in this structure. They shoot this structure with a tank round. And then they send a drone in there to see what's going on. And now apparently this guy had got one arm blown off and he's in this structure. He's fucked up and he's got just a stick, and they got this drone going in there to see what's going on, and he's taking swings at this drone with a stick. So they back the drone off and then hit the structure again with another tank round and kill the guy. And then that's when they get in there and they figure out, oh, this was this leader, Yahya Sinwar, and he's dead now. So these silly fucks, they're like, yeah, hooray for us, fuck you guys. And they put this video out where like, look, check it out, man. Look at him. He's a desperate man, like swinging with a stick. Oh, we killed him. What these silly fucks don't realize is that just like this movie, when you put your values out there, your values are 1,000 miles removed, absolutely diametrically opposed to the things that decent people believe. This motherfucker, like how many times did they try to come out and say like, oh, hey, bro, just give up our hostages. We won't hurt you. Get the fuck out of here. Because I guess, and I had heard a little bit about this guy's backstory. This guy was born in a camp. Like born in some lockdown camp in Gaza somewhere, grew up in that shit, got accused of he had tried to put together some kind of a thing to kill some Israelis or some such. And again, like who can blame the fucking guy, right? And tried to put something together, got like 4 life sentences, somehow got out. I'm not sure how that came to pass, but somehow got out and still fighting it out. So this guy, no shit. And again, like I did not leave my wallet in Palestine. I'm not a Muslim sympathizer. I don't subscribe to that ideology. What I do subscribe to is being a man with big balls. I subscribe to being a man who walks it like you talk it. So where this guy could have been like, yeah, okay, man, we're having some guys blown up and holy shit, they can get blown up, but you might be onto me soon. And I don't want that. So let's work something out. Let's work something out like you just hang a bunch of those guys and I'll haul ass to, some other place, fucking Jordan or Qatar, and I'll live out my life, kind of doing whatever I do. And these guys can gut it out. He didn't go with any of that. This guy stayed in the fight, went down swinging, went down with a fucking stick. Like not even a pistol, not even a fucking knife, a fucking stick swinging at a fucking drone. So while these motherfuckers stand back and like just hammer with tank rounds, this guy is going out with his big fucking nuts on. And these silly son of a bitches are putting this out like, haha, fuck you. Like, dude, honestly, how inspiring is it? And I mean, again, these are not my people, man. But to actually see a leader who fucking leads from the front. Can you imagine that shit? I mean, look at, for as silly as it was, the January 6th thing from 2020. I mean, this was unauthorized tourism at best. Like, let's not fucking bullshit each other. Even if, there were some people outside talking some shit, maybe throwing some things. One, those people got instigated like a motherfucker. But as I hear it, and the video that I saw, these people who, let's be clear, got let into that Capitol building, they didn't break anything. They didn't hurt anybody. They didn't go after anybody. They didn't threaten anybody, so far as I know. The most these people did was walk along. I mean, there's people taking pictures, staying behind the velvet rope and this kind of shit. All right, these people were very respectful. And yet, you see these people who would present themselves as leaders. I'm your leader. Where the fuck were they? They're hauling ass to a bunker. They're hiding under their fucking chairs. And I like to think that, like, even if, I feel like if I was in there and they're like, hey, this is the policy, you got to be under these fucking chairs, you do what we say, because if they come in and shooting starts, I don't need you getting hit in the fucking head. Okay, all right, I don't have a gun. Mr. Secret Service has a gun. I don't know what's going on behind that door. All right, I'm going to sit on the ground at least. But I like to think that I would not be sitting there with that scared, shitless fucking look on my face. Like, holy fuck, the end of the world. This ain't for me. I didn't sign up for this shit, man. Well, what the fuck did you think you signed up for? You want to be a leader, fucking lead. All right? It's fucking embarrassing and pathetic. I mean, the state of this shit as it is right now. But then when you look over here and you see like this guy, this Yahya Sinwar guy that's willing to go out there, that has apparently at least done right by his people, or at least they believe that he has enough that they're not going to dime him out. that this guy is going to fight till he's missing an arm and swinging a fucking stick. I found that, I mean, it's hard to not find that inspiring on some level. You know what I mean? And, you know, when I compare it to, like, I look at this film, I think is like the perfect example of, like, this is our values over here. Our values is I'm a sneaky little shit. I'm going to weasel dick everybody, fuck everybody over just so I can get mine, even if it only means, like, I'm just getting laid. Because let's not fuck around, dude. This is not a fairy tale story where, like, you live happily ever after. Like, motherfucker, you just took this woman away from her whole identity to be, like, your traveling stage wife. What the fuck story is this? What values does this portray? All right, and now you compare this over here, a guy walking it like he talks it, going down swinging a stick at a fucking drone. Like, dude, you created fucking followers that day. You created fucking soldiers that day. But these people are so fucking tone deaf, they absolutely do not get it. They don't understand what they're even fucking doing. In that sense, then, I think it kind of brings us full circle back to us, back to what's going on stateside and some of the wacky shit that's going on here. So I had a chance to look at this DoD Directive 5240 TAC 1, and some interesting shit has come to light, man. So I want to kind of preface this and say that all of this shit kind of ties together because, long and short, this is basically an authorization for the federal government to, like, basically expands federal government reach and their ability to pair up, if you will, with almost any form of law enforcement or any form of, how can I say, like, militarized intelligence collection activity to come after whoever the fuck they decide they need to go after. And as we've already seen, like with the, the National Anti-Terrorism Strategy that came out, or Counterterrorism Strategy that came out. It was a few years ago now that it got published, but it was very much long and short, like, we're targeting white people. That's what this is about. And I done a little episode on that. I'll see if I could find the write-up I did on it, man. If I could find it, I'll post it. But this is very much like we're getting ready to come after you. So I'm going to read through I read through the whole, like the thing that I read before, it was like 2 pages, kind of an overview kind of a thing. And the thing that came out just the other day, I found a spot where it links to the entire document. It's like 22 pages. So I read through that and I made note of some of the highlights. And I wanted to read through this because it really kind of conveys what these people are about, what they're willing to do, and what they probably will do. No doubt they're going to try to paint this thing as like, dude, you're reading into it. You're making more of this than it really is. According to what I'm seeing here, this is, this is Stasi. Like, this is fucking KGB material. Like, we're going to be collecting fucking heavy. We're looking for your ass. So I want to read through this, and I want to tell you, as I read through it, I want to tell you why I think some of the things that I think as I'm looking through this thing. Long and short up front, I want to say that, like, yeah, this is basically a green light for them to do whatever you want, and your time to pick up that stick, even if you're missing an arm, might be sooner than later, based on what I'm reading here. So not to be like a total kook and like scaremongering and shit, but some of this shit is pretty heavy, man. So let me get into this thing. So the title of this directive, so this is a DoD directive, is Department of Defense Intel and Intel-related activities and Defense Intel component assistance to law enforcement agencies and other civil authorities. So here again, man, this is to say that, like, DoD, Intel, and collection, this is find and fix. This is who are you? What are you doing? What do we know about what you're doing? Who's connected to you? All this kind of shit. This is to work in conjunction with, like it says here, law enforcement agencies, but also other civil authorities. It's important when you see these little add-on phrases, these little bonus phrases. This means and whatever else, okay? It's not specified. When it's not specified, you can think of this as like, we're going to ask forgiveness later as opposed to asking permission right now. So basically, if it comes up and somebody bitches, like, hey, what the fuck are you doing using like the DMV to spy on me? Or then if somebody bitches and they're like, oh yeah, we probably shouldn't do that, then they'll stop. Otherwise, they're going to keep fucking doing it. All right. So let's continue. This document early on, so just kind of going through it, some of the stuff that I noticed, I'm just going through it like sequentially as I saw it on the pages. Early on, it specifies what this directive is not in reference to. So it is not in reference to humanitarian efforts, disaster relief related efforts. So this is important because a lot of times like they can just go and like grab up anybody from the military. There was lots of times where they could just come to base and be like, hey, you're going to fill sandbags because it's flooding down at the river or whatever, or there's a fire up in the mountains. You're going to go help deliver water or some shit. They can't just come to you and you'll be like slave labor, like you're getting fucking conscripted for the day. You're going to go do this shit. And while that might sound fucking nuts to regular people, like that's the military, dude. You're essentially slave labor. Like you're a piece of equipment. They can come to you and do whatever the fuck they want. But this is not in reference to that. So we're not talking about humanitarian shit, disaster relief shit, not maritime or aeronautical safety type shit like lost at sea or a plane crash. This is not in reference to any of that. Not in relation to environmental studies or mapping or charting missions, and not related to counterintelligence or other international intelligence concerns. So what we're not talking about is, I think the Chinese are spying on that building over there. I think there's an Iranian agent doing meetups at this coffee shop. This is not that. This is not what this is talking about. They're telling you right here, this is not what this is about. It does immediately after specify that special emphasis will be given to protection of citizens' constitutional rights. So to me, right out of the gate, this is not a way to say like, you know, as we do this, we're going to be careful of this. What this to me says is that we've already considered this from the perspective of your constitutional rights, and this doesn't violate them. So whether they're listening to your phone, following you around during your day-to-day activities, were you to go to someone and say, hey, I think my rights are being violated, they're going to say like, no, we already considered that. See, we told you right here, we considered it. It's been considered. Shut the fuck up. Get out of here. All right. And I only say this because I've done this dance more than a few times on both sides of the, on both sides of the dance floor here. All right. I've been the guy on the operator side and I've been the guy under the microscope side saying like, hey man, I think you're trying to squeeze me for some shit I wasn't involved with. Like, no, if we're squeezing you, it's because you're probably guilty. Shut the fuck up. Oh, okay. All right. So I'm not completely talking out of my ass here. So it goes on then to specify that these activities will be undertaken only when authorized by, a different list of authorizing entities. But I think that is important because what that means is that knowing that DoD is already shorthanded, right? Like it ain't a secret that like all military branches are not meeting recruiting goals right now. Everybody is shorthanded. If you know that they're already shorthanded, but now they're saying, hey, we're going to go ahead and increase some of the shit you might be involved in, some of the shit you might be responsible for. A primary special operations tenet is that you cannot construct a special operations capability once a crisis is already underway. That means that before any kind of crisis gets underway, they will have to stand up this capability. That means that you can look for increased funding. They're going to have to build this thing. You're going to see this shit come online. Hopefully you see it, because if you don't see it, it means that something is, getting by your radar. As they build it, they're not going to fucking build something and say, all right, just put it in a closet until we need it. They're going to have to justify that funding by putting shit in play. All right, moving along then, one of the more interesting things I saw that this directive outlines is that these defense intelligence components may contract without revealing their connection to defense intelligence for purposes of, it says specifically for purposes of cover or for material support. So this would include things like cars, transportation, meals, lodging, office space, any of this kind of stuff, right? Funding can be provided for all this stuff without revealing their connection to defense intelligence. And it specifies later on in this document that this is specific to covert type work. So here I want to emphasize again the difference between covert and clandestine. So clandestine means that it's still you're just sneaking someplace. Like clandestine is I'm trying to not get caught doing it, right? So if I'm stealing cookies out of the cookie jar, I'm trying to not get seen taking these cookies. If somebody comes in there and turns the lights on and they're like, Coffee, what the fuck are you doing? Like, oh shit, I was trying to steal these cookies. You got me. All right. Covert is different. Like the definition of covert is that the sponsoring entity is concealed, like remains concealed even if the perpetrator gets discovered, right? So if it's me stealing the cookies and I get caught, like, Coffee, what are you doing with these fucking cookies, right? But if I go and get a guy, like say I post on whatever the fuck, man, Craigslist, like sneaky thief wanted, and the guy emails me and I say, hey, I want you to sneak into this place and get these cookies and then deposit them in this mailbox where I can get them. And the guy doesn't ever know it's me, never knows it's Coffee. He just knows like my job is to steal these cookies and then I get paid and I go away. If this guy gets caught stealing these cookies, there's no connection to me. Nobody ever knows it's actually Coffee. All he has is like some anonymous email address. He's going to put these cookies into an anonymous mailbox, and that's all this guy ever knows. So in that sense, this would be covert. All right. So that means that me, the sponsoring entity, is concealed. And that is what they're talking about here. They're talking about doing covert work here in the U.S. So like where a cop would have to come to your door and be like, hey, I'm a cop and I'm investigating whatever the fuck, fucking smashed mailbox, whatever. Did you do this shit? What they're investigating, right? Do you have a bat in here that's got mailbox colored paint on it? They're investigating, right? A covert type thing would be someone breaks in and this someone, like maybe their ID is fake, maybe their business card or whatever, that the sponsoring entity is the Pine Tree Air Freshener Company that has an office that's been stood up for 2 weeks, right? That's where they work. I got a fake ID and a fake place that I work, and that's the sponsoring entity. And in that way, this defense intel network would remain protected. They would never know that it was, this person or this entity getting into your office or into your stuff or following you around or any of this shit. It would only be this guy, right? So this is the level that they're willing to go to. And I'll tell you something, when you look at you look at spy movies or some shit, how it's always these society fucks, it's always like aristocrats. The reason for that is because it's very fucking expensive, right? You're basically paying for 2 lives, right? So you got to have like extra cars, extra places to live, extra groups of friends. You got to actually go and deliberately make appearances at different places. Like, yeah, I'm a football fan enthusiast. I always go on Sunday and I watch the games at fucking Jilly's Sports Bar over here, right? I got to always go do that shit because that's my cover. That's who I presumably am, right? I work at the Pine Tree Air Freshener place and I watch football at this place on Sundays. And at some point, that extremist motherfucker is going to come in here and we're going to share a pitcher of Bud Light and I'm going to start working him. All right. So that's the nature of this thing. It's very fucking expensive, but they're willing to spend this money to make this happen, right? But so when I think of it that way, that like, why are you willing to spend this money? You could like, if the threat was from people sneaking in here, if it was, bunny ears, Islamic extremists or organized crime, right? Taking over apartment complexes or whatever, or narcotraficante, right? If it was any of that shit, all you got to really do is lock down the border, right? You lock that shit down and then half of these other problems just go away. But it's because that's not the problem they're worried about. The problem they're worried about is people saying, hey, you're kind of fucking up the America that I thought America was supposed to be. Oh, really? Well, you're not supporting our democracy. So now who's on the hook? You, right? So this thing goes on to specify then that the connection to DoD or Intel components doesn't have to be related during any of these situations, but it does have to be related if you're interacting with an academic institution. So why that matters is because a lot of these intelligence agencies, and this is an international thing, they target academic institutions because this is, apart from the idiots, and the diversity hires, this is where smart fucks hang out. And it's where the up-and-comers hang out, and it's where people who are going to be connected down the road hang out. So you're going to these places, you're meeting the people that matter. In this instance, though, it's saying if you talk to these people I'm guessing on campus. I don't know if this means on campus or if this means like you as a part of this component would have to go to the school and say, hey, we might have an interest in some of your students. Is it cool if we talk to people? If they say yes and you say, yeah, this is who we are, this is what we do, and they say yes, I don't know if that means you have to reveal that to any of the people you talk to, like if you were recruiting for an intelligence source, or if you were targeting someone like, this guy's trying to form a European heritage club on campus, we're going to look at him. But probably they would just look from afar at that point. They would never put themselves in a position to have to reveal who they are or what they're doing. It also goes on to specify here that that assassinations are not authorized in this. So assassinations are not authorized here. It makes me wonder if are assassinations authorized somewhere else, just not through this particular act. But it does sort of raise a question of like, okay, assassinations aren't authorized here. Where are they authorized? It also goes on to say that any action taken on this thing must protect the rights of a U.S. citizen specific to their civil rights, their constitutional rights, their rights to privacy, and so on. However, it does say that, say you are collecting data. I'm trying to collect on young Joe Bob here, who might, have had the bad sense to be part of the European Heritage Club. I'm trying to collect on this guy, but in the process, I collect a bunch of emails, or say I listen in on a bunch of conversations and record them where he's having conversations with people who aren't involved in this thing, right? Like he's talking to his buddy Jim and his pal Ted, right? And they're talking about European Heritage Club, but then he's talking to this girl Jane, and he's only talking to her because he wants to go on a date. Allegedly, all of the information specific to Jane, I'm supposed to do away with. However, this direction here specifies that if Jane is involved in something illegal, then I have to forward that to relevant law enforcement office. So if Jane is talking about, I'm going to break into this guy's house and steal his TV, then I would have to send that information to like the police. So essentially, this, you could see, on one hand, it makes you want to think of this as like the police are being souped up by this intel capability, right? Like you think of cops as like now they're getting intel from all these different avenues. I kind of think of it as the reverse grip, where like the big paw of government is just, no, here, you police basically work for us now. Where before you might have gone and investigated this stolen TV, maybe you figure it out, maybe you don't. We're going to be pumping you intel. You can act on the shit that we're interested in acting on, but then the stuff that maybe you would have never gotten to, like, say this stolen TV situation or something, you might not have got to that. What does that lead to down the road? That leads to justification for increased funding. And increased funding means increased what? Increased taxes. Pretty fucking easy, right? So you could see where this government overreach thing just gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and it becomes like this self-licking ice cream cone. It goes on to specify that they're talking about up to and including in this thing, not just like military, but they're talking about National Security Council, DNI, Director of National Intelligence, Homeland Security Council, Department of Treasury, Department of State, Department of Justice, Homeland Security, Intel community. So that's, when you say Intel community, that's not just like CIA, NSA. That's CIA, NSA, DIA, geospatial mapping, all of this stuff. These are all Intel agencies. So there's a shit ton of Intel agencies, and also Congress and all of their little committees and what have you. It also specifies here that it includes international organizations and governments, as well as state, tribal, local law enforcement. So what you're seeing here is the government is not going to any longer be like this parallel type structure. It's going to be this much larger overarching, like anything between a hub and an overarching umbrella that says, hey, everybody gets to mix and match with everybody now. So how we talked before, I think it was an episode called Five Eyes Guys. I remember this, where it was talking about how U.S. government would share information back and forth with foreign intel agencies, say like MI5 or MI6 out of UK, whereby like if a CIA or NSA isn't supposed to or isn't allowed to target U.S. citizens in the U.S., well, MI6 can do that. All right, so they can target you and your phone and your email and get all that shit. And then if there's anything interesting, then they can just hand it to any relevant U.S. law enforcement agency. This almost bypasses that and says, yeah, no, we're just going to go ahead and do that anyway. And then maybe, if the lines blur between CIA and military intelligence, because like proper CIA, this is like what guys call the blue badge, right? So that's like ominous dominus, you're in this club. You're like a made man, right? Some stuff, some jobs, you can be working on a program that falls under CIA, but you would not be a blue badge guy. You would be somebody that is like just a contractor. So in this instance, a contract guy could get that information from like an MI5 or MI6 that gets shared to CIA, that gets pushed to contract guy. And whatever you do with it, man, that's not my problem because I'm not the one doing it. I'm not the one targeting. You just follow where the information goes and do what you think is best. So you could see where they can essentially do whatever they want. They just have to put on the proper hat to do it. Make sense? And then lastly, they kind of start touching on like a use of force type thing where we talk about find, fix, finish. Like the find, fix piece, like who are we looking for? What are they doing? Who are they talking to? What are they planning? What are they saying? All this kind of shit. That's like the find, fix, like the finish where they might show up and get you, the royal you, whatever, where they might show up and get one, right? They're talking about how this would include situations like the one that they put out to everybody is where they're talking about where it might become a lethal force type situation where somebody could get really hurt, where like you're talking about explosives or guns or chemicals or biological or radiological or this kind of shit. All right, that's the one they put out in the little cover sheet type thing. What it actually says in the instruction here is includes situations where confrontation between civilian law enforcement is reasonably anticipated. So that is to say, if you're Bunny Ears Joe extremist and they're going to show up at your house, well, hey, maybe we could get some federal help. Why would you need that? Is that authorized? Of course it is, because confrontation is reasonably anticipated. I mean, if confrontation wasn't reasonably anticipated, do you think we'd be showing up in the first place? Of course not. So we got to go. And because we got to go, you get to be there. So you could see this kind of, the justification kind of writes itself. But I guess the thing here is, but looking also at how they're talking about, when they say lethal encounters, it does towards the end of the document go on to specify between potential lethal encounters and imminent lethal encounters. So where you might have earlier said like, yeah, look, like the cops are going to go, and if some guy's got himself barricaded in his house or barricaded in his apartment and he's like, fuck you, I'm not coming out. Then like, okay, well now that's a whole nother situation. Maybe we got to get somebody in here. No, that's not what they're talking about. That would be more like imminent lethal encounters. Like it's going to happen here forthwith in short order if nobody does anything. That's imminent. All right. What they say earlier, where they say potential lethal encounters, it could go that way. And like it says in that previous line, is reasonably expected. So what's reasonably expected? I mean, that's kind of been framed out pretty well. So in all, dude, I would say that it is a pretty short document. It does reference a lot of other things. It does reference Presidential Directive 12333, which is the one that they talk about, where they talk about, I think this was like from the Kennedy era, where like, we're not going to do assassinations. We're not going to do a lot of this other sneaky lowdown type shit, even though it still goes on. But we're not going to do this to Americans. It references this shit, but as you can kind of see here, it's like a very short document that pretty much, in not so many words, says we're going to actually go ahead and do what we want anyway. How's that grab you? But we have justification, and just these little couple of few circumstances that are actually pretty broad, we can do whatever the fuck we want. So what then does that mean for you? Like I said last time, man, this means like be prepared to be a criminal insofar as what you're doing today might not be illegal, but you doing this same thing or saying this same thing, or as we've seen in some countries like UK, you thinking this same thing a few years from now, maybe even a few months from now, depending on how things go in November, right? This could be a situation like, congratulations, you're now a criminal. Congratulations, you're now being targeted by a very capable intel apparatus, complete with like law enforcement hookups and funding and backing from literally every direction. So to that end, man, I can't tell you what to do specifically, but I can tell you that like, get ready for weird times, because weird times are definitely coming. I would say get some things in place if you've got ideas on like, dude, if shit gets weird, I'm going to, I'm going to stay at this guy's house for a couple days till the GTA stars, go down a little bit. Or I'm going to go to this country, or I got a friend in this town, or I got a fucking vacation cabin, or a guy who has one, or some shit up in this part of the country. Start thinking through that shit now, dude. Like if you think through like the Stasi period, the KGB type activity shit of like grabbing people up, asking people questions, and hey man, maybe you never see this shit. Maybe this thing gets crumpled up and thrown away. But for my money, what this leaves the door open for is fucking bad news. So I would tell you no shit like, dude, I like to get on here and fuck around and crack some jokes. And dude, I missed the time when things were funny, where shit could just be a laugh, It does not look like shit could just be a laugh no more. So I would tell you to start getting ready for weird times. If you got some shit that you don't want presented in court, like get that shit away from you. Like get it off of your hard drive, get it out of your sock drawer, whatever the fuck it is you got to do, man. Like try to make yourself as squeaky clean as you can. But once you've done that, man, start making your decision on living your life in a way that says you're ready to die one-armed holding a stick. All right. So with that, man, sorry if that's a downer or a kind of a black pill. Hope it doesn't go that way. It'd be a lot cooler if it didn't. We can all meet for drinks. But, if it does, then at least you've got a little bit of a heads up. All right. So with that in mind, man, do leave this shit where somebody can find it. The world needs more people like us. And until next time, keep your eyes on the horizon. Keep your neck out of the noose. I have been Coffee, and these are my takes.